Hi there, and welcome to another BigLipz podcast. This is the second episode of our second series, where we are discussing all things TV, but as a sort of means of bridging the gap, we thought, well, Kathryn had this wonderful idea for one of our movie podcasts, and I have sort of shamelessly poached it. And basically, this week we're going to be discussing movies and TV shows and the sort of translation from one medium to the other. Sometimes it is a sort of sequel. Sometimes these things exist within the same universe, the same canon. Sometimes you have basically a remake or a reimagining. And so we thought there's quite a lot to discuss there. So we've come up with 8 sort of individual categories, which we will spend varied amounts of times discussing. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. To begin with, let me introduce myself. My name is Sam Macaulay Blair, and I am joined as ever by the wonderful Kathryn Maurice. The two of us are basically two current/former film students. Obviously, there's quite a lot of overlap between film and TV. If you study one, you tend to have a love for the other, and a fair understanding of it too. So, hence the move from movies to TV. Also, we just thought it'd be nice to change things up for a bit. And rather than letting those podcast numbers roll up forever, we thought it'd be a good chance for a wee reset and do a second series. Cool. So to get around to things, the first category is probably the most obvious one. Kathryn, what are some of your favourite movie to TV shows? What are some of your favourite TV shows that have been based on movies?
So this one, the one that immediately sprung to mind was the TV show Westworld, which is a funny choice because I actually haven't seen the movie, but I feel like I've never really heard much about the movie. I've never really heard anyone talking about it. I think I might just know that it's a movie from studying film and things like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like if the movie was half as good as the TV show, I would have heard about it before.
Yeah.
And I would have gone out of my way to watch it. I feel like this is out with it being based on a movie, I think this is one of the best TV shows out there. It's absolutely gorgeous, visually stunning. It's such a interesting story. I think it works really well as a TV show because as TV shows tend to do, you can just roll it on and on and on and on and on, and it can just kind of keep going. But it definitely, I don't think, would feel massively repetitive. There's obviously an end date that would be good if it was a contained story. But yeah, I think it's a lot more interesting as in a TV format because, again, I'm saying this having not seen the movie, but in the TV show, so the characters are really well developed, and it's very well acted as well, which is always fun to watch. So yeah, I feel like it's nice getting that kind of extra time with each character. You can have your favourite character, and Westworld is, and I wouldn't ever think of it this way, but when you're talking about it, it's one of those shows that's pretty jam-packed with twists and stuff like that, and twists that have a lot of impact because they're built up over time, obviously, the way that you wouldn't quite be able to do the same with a movie.
Yeah.
I also think as well, when you think about, because I think from my research, the movie came out in the early 70s, and obviously the whole sort of premise of Westworld is that it's this kind of almost futuristic, immersive world that you can go into, but the people in there are fake, they're robots. So I think it's really good making it now where we, technologically speaking, with actual just filmmaking techniques and stuff, we're so much more advanced. So you can make it look better, you can make it even just sound better, sound design, stuff like that, obviously CGI and different things like that. So yeah, I feel like it's definitely a show that benefits from better technology, basically, I would argue. You're a fan of Westworld, aren't you?
Yeah, funnily enough, it is also one of the ones on my list, and I also have never seen the film. I think I might know a little bit more about it than you. Do you know that it's based on a book?
I can't remember if I did know that. I wouldn't be surprised though. It does. It has that kind of that kind of feel, the way that kind of sci-fi books always have that are turned into TV shows and that.
Yeah. Well, I think the movie is quite. I don't really know. I've not read the book, and again, I've not seen the movie. But I think the movie is probably quite faithful in spirit, in a lot of ways, to the book. So the fun the reason I bring that up is because you know who wrote the book. So bear in mind, basically the premise of the book is effectively it's like like you said, almost an immersive sim, but it's almost like a theme park where they go in and it's made to feel like you're in the Wild Wild West, and obviously the attractions, these fake like people, these robots go evil, and the park sort of goes out of control. Does that premise remind you of anything else?
I did know this actually. It's the same guy that wrote Jurassic Park.
It is. Which is just the best.
I love it. That's so funny because I'd read that before and I recognised his name, and I must just have in my brain been like, like, yeah, you know who he is, but it never. As you were describing it, then I was like, of course.
Yeah.
Well, he's found something that works, which is fair.
It's such a weird niche to like carve out, but and it's funny as well because like obviously the first Westworld was, I think, quite campy and not that great. But like you say, the TV show is just one of the best TV shows out there. It's just so strong in terms of like writing, directing, acting, in terms of like cinematography, music. Literally everything that a show like can do well, it does well. And there's so much like nuance and detail packed in. And yeah, it's utterly phenomenal. And I think at a glance, it looks completely different from the movie that obviously inspired it. But yeah, like I find it funny that like you just have like Jurassic Park, and I mean fair play to the Michael Crichton he's called, because there is obviously Jurassic Park is an absolute classic, and now Westworld, the original movie, left a little to be desired, I believe, but the TV show I feel like properly realizes its premise. One thing as well that occurred to me just when you were talking about it as well is you said about the movie coming out in the 70s and potentially the early 70s. I guess like the interesting thing about the show existing now is that like in that time video games have like come into being, and obviously like accelerated in terms of like development, and now we live in an era where like video games are kind of like a part of life, but you have like immersive sim. That's like a form of like immersive sim, and I guess because of that, the show probably has more to say about people and about how people, and just more information on like how people would act in these situations, because there is a lot of like, it's the way that people act when they're in Westworld is pretty terrible a lot of the time. And again, don't know much about the movie, but I don't think the movie had these like comments on just like human nature that the show does, and I feel like that does come from things like Grand Theft Auto existing, and us kind of realizing culturally that like in video games allow us to, like, when we have this like fictional world where there's like effectively no consequences, we do kind of turn to like doing all the worst things because there's just like, and it's because we know it's not real, we're not actually hurting anyone or anything, but I do like the fact that it basically, like, the premise in a lot of ways is kind of like, what if a video game was real, and these things that you think you aren't really feeling any repercussions of what you're doing actually are, but fantastic choice.
Yeah, that's a classic. I remember, as I was writing my notes, I remembered that you and I had spoken about it before and just how good it was. In a totally different vein, my next choice is the TV show Catfish.
Okay. I did not know that was based in a movie.
Yeah, it started as a movie, and it was the host of Catfish, the TV show. It was Neve, and it happened to him. He was catfished, and his brother's a filmmaker. So they basically just made a movie of Neve trying to figure out what was happening and hunting down his catfish, basically. And then it kind of snowballed from there. I feel like the reason for this one is, for me anyway, it's such a guilty pleasure. Like, I absolutely love Catfish. And I watch it all the time, and no one ever lets me watch it because it's pretty trashy, but it's just such like, I feel like the story really lends itself to being very formulaic.
Yeah.
So it's such a nice, easy, if you're wanting something to just binge watch, do you know what I mean? It works really well, and there's always, like, it's very formulaic, but there's so many seasons, and they're obviously very conscious of that, so they like do different things each season. So like they'll bring the catfish to them, or they'll go and see them, or like there was one season that came out recently that was, every episode was a catfish first. So like people saying that people were coming back for the dead and stuff like that. Like, it is ridiculous, but that's why I love it. That's why it's so good. I feel as well, like, Neve's he's good at his job. He's pretty entertaining to watch, and he's got like a new co-host, Cammy, she's so good. But I feel like what's kind of like Catfish is really trashy, and I'm not trying to get away with that. But I feel like MTV is like the perfect place for it to play.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's very like on brand for MTV. I think the documentary actually was maybe with MTV as well. I think that's kind of how he had connections to start the TV show. But yeah, so that's my second choice. And then the last one I wanted to talk about, I think will be pretty surprising because we've spoken about it before, and I've spoken about the film series in the podcast and how it's not my favourite. But my last choice was The Mandalorian.
Oh, okay.
Because my justification for this is I feel like it's a perfect example of a great way to take a movie and turn it into a TV show.
Yeah.
Where you've got the whole world of Star Wars, and there's obviously little callbacks and stuff like that. But it's a completely different character.
Yeah.
So you're getting to see different parts of the world that you didn't get to see in the movies. Maybe different elements that while you were watching the movie, if you're watching it like so another example obviously would be the Boba Fett one. So it's like a nice little dip into, oh, I really like that character, but how did he... Well, Boba Fett, though, actually is after the events, I think. So, but, like, where did he go from there? How did he become who he is, kind of thing? So, yeah, I feel like it's such a fun way to, like, get your fill of the movies without the actual, like, having to put all the time into watching the movies.
Yeah.
It's like a nice time-saving exercise.
I think you're right though. Like some I think when you have something like that sort of, especially Star Wars, which is like, you know, one of the most sort of iconic and well realized universes out there, I think it does lend itself to a TV series, because I mean that's why they keep making movies, is because people want to go back in to these worlds. But I think a lot of the time is they're struggling to find justifications for, like, you know, these big, because they keep trying to make these big event movies, don't they, where it's like the biggest thing that's ever happened in the galaxy, and I think that constant like one-upmanship, or like that need for like one-upmanship, causes a lot of problems. I think like really what people want is just to spend a bit more time in that universe, and to have, like you say, to have like some characters a bit better fleshed out. And I think a TV show is like a good place for that, where you can hell a more sort of like, even though it's like a longer format, you generally like, you expect the stakes to be lower, you expect the scale of the story to be smaller. And I think you know, you get to spend a little bit more time in each place, so you do get to like flesh out each setting. So yeah, I think I get that. I've only seen the first series of The Mandalorian. I'm trying to catch up on Clone Wars before I watch season 2 and then Book of Boba Fett, because from as I understand it, there's a lot of like connections. But yeah, no, I Mandalorian was also on my list because of the fact that, like, I think it's also just like, in terms of like production value, it's also just like, you know, like it is like through the roof in terms of like what they managed to achieve on a TV show. It is genuinely really impressive. And yeah, I just think it's
that theme song as well.
Yeah, theme song is fantastic. And yeah, they have like some really great like actors and stuff like that in it, and it just does feel like a perfect extension of like the movie universe, rather than just feeling like, because you know, the worry with like a live action Star Wars TV series is that it would just feel like a cheaper like knockoff version of like the movies, and it doesn't feel like that, which is good. But yeah, no, good picks. Catfish is definitely a curveball as well. But it's an interesting one.
So good.
I never really watched it, but I appreciate what you were saying about the fact that they actually try and like change it up. They don't just go, well, you know, this works, people are going to watch it anyway, we're just going to keep doing the same thing. I like the fact that they actually make an effort to be like, okay, well, how do we put a spin on this? How do we do it a bit different?
I feel like they know as well. They very much know what it is.
Yeah.
Like, they're not trying to make it anything that it's not. Whereas there's actually like a British spin-off, which I watched once out of curiosity, and it was awful. Partly because the presenters were like, this was the most serious thing that had ever happened on Earth, and it was just really embarrassing.
Yeah.
Whereas the American one, they just kind of like, they kind of obviously it's aired on TV, so they're not super sensitive to the fact that it's people's real lives, but they kind of try to be a wee bit sensitive, but they also kind of like just when stuff's funny, they make fun of it, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, fair. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, tone is so important with a show like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you can't really, it can't really take itself too seriously. Because like, yeah, I mean that's the thing. There is obviously like a scary part to like catfishing, but at the same time, like it is also like a lot of time there's like a lot of humor there, and that's kind of what you want to
Yeah.
see. You don't really want to watch it to be scared, or depressed or like
Yeah,
upset.
I'm not going on to MTV for like hard hitting documentaries.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. But yeah, no, very good picks.
Thank you.
I've got a few more that you haven't mentioned. Obviously, I had Mandalorian, I had Westworld, both fantastic shows. One that's on just now, which I am absolutely loving, is Peacemaker, the James Gunn TV series, with John Cena.
Is that the one with John Cena?
Yeah. So to be clear, I don't really care for John Cena. Like, obviously he shows up in like a bunch of films. I'm not really into this whole like wrestlers becoming movie stars thing. Like, I'm really not a big fan of The Rock either. They're just kind of the sitting.
They're very like samey.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people like them, but yeah, just not really for me. And then the Suicide Squad, which was released last summer, I was really looking forward to because I really like Guardians of the Galaxy. I like James Gunn's style.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to see it, and I was just I enjoyed it, but I didn't. It didn't blow me away the way that I was expecting it to. It very much just like was enjoyable, and that was kind of it. So I wasn't really that bothered about Peacemaker. And then my flatmate suggested watching it together, so we stuck the first episode on, and I was floored by how much I enjoyed the first. I think we both were floored by how much we enjoyed the first episode. And now we've just finished episode 5. We're watching roughly like one a week, just because of like our schedules. But it is like every time I watch it, I'm just like, this show is fantastic. So yeah, Peacemaker's one is worth checking out. I think it's also like one of the most viewed like TV shows right now. I think it's like one of HBO's most popular shows, which is very surprising, especially because I don't think the Suicide Squad did that well in terms of like ticket sales. So it's weird that like
I've seen some stuff about it. Like, I've seen articles and stuff written about it, but it's never, like, we've spoken obviously before about how I'm not massive on superhero movies and stuff.
Yeah.
But I do like James Gunn. I did like Guardians of the Galaxy in that.
Yeah.
So
I'd say his sort of sense of humour is what makes it good. But yeah, it's another one that I've got, and I guess sticking with like the more humorous sort of shows, is What We Do in the Shadows, which,
do you know, I've always wanted to watch that, but I just low-key laziness. I have never like found out where you can watch it, because I'm like, it's not on Netflix. Where am I going to find it?
It's on I'm pretty sure it's on BBC iPlayer, and I think it's now also on Disney Plus as well.
Oh, perfect.
So yeah, exactly. I obviously saw the movie, the Taika Waititi film, years ago. I absolutely loved it, and when I saw they were doing a TV show, I was like, I feel like that idea and that, like, the movie was really funny, but I feel like it's the sort of thing that would just wait out its welcome as a TV show, and I'd like, especially because they have like a different cast and everything, and a different setting, and it's set in America rather than set in like New Zealand, so you would feel like it would lose a lot of like the sort of like charm that made it so good. But it's just fantastic. Like, it is just such a good TV show. It is genuinely like really, really funny. I think the fact the episodes are all like 20 minutes long as well means that they get to come in, they have like a silly idea for an episode, and then they kind of get to wrap it up, and it never really outstays its welcome. So yeah, What We Do in the Shadows is incredibly watchable. So I would recommend checking it out. I don't think there's like tons of it as well. I think there's like maybe 10 episodes per series.
Okay.
So like really each series is like the length of a movie. But yeah, What We Do in the Shadows is another one. Another one I wanted to mention was Fargo, which I watched the first series of before having seen the film, and then I enjoyed the film less than the TV series. But then that is because part of that, I'd say, is because like the TV series of the first series, even though it's set within like the same continuity, because they do reference like the events of the first film in the TV show, or in the film and in the TV show, but broadly speaking, a lot of the story is the same that it's telling, and that's kind of an idea that translates, because every series of Fargo has like a different sort of cast, a different sort of time period, which again is one of the things that I like about it, is it comes in and does something a bit different every year, or every year that it's on. And I think the first series for me is my favourite, but I have enjoyed every series. I've not seen the fourth one yet. Again, like you were saying, just because I don't know, like Channel 4 was showing series 1 to 3, and I don't know what's happening with like the airing of series 4, so I've just not had a chance to watch it yet. But for me, the first series like did it best, and it's just like an absurdly well told story, and again, like acting, cinematography, directing, music and stuff like that are all like,
that's funny, because I've seen the movie. I love the movie. I think it's so good. And so I started to watch the program, and I think I only got like an episode and a half in, and I was like, this is a bit much. I don't know whether I think I had maybe watched it very soon after watching the movie, so I'd maybe just had like, that was kind of what was in my head, and then I was watching the TV show and it just wasn't the same. But I would definitely give it another go, because it always gets really good reviews. I think
I definitely,
it's pretty funny.
Yeah, I definitely suggest going back to it. I think for me, I fell in love with it over the course of the first series. I think I enjoyed it from the beginning, but I do remember thinking it's almost like I was enjoying it more with every episode, because I do remember thinking to begin with, I was like, this is quite a slow show, it's quite a deliberate show. But the more I was watching it, and the more I was like seeing what they're doing, the more I was like, okay, this is actually like really, really well done. And every series that I go into with it, I'm like, okay, like I know roughly what I'm in for, but like I'm here for the ride. And they do always get really interesting, really good actors. So definitely one worth checking out. And then the last one I wanted to mention is another one where I have not seen the movie that it's based on, and probably never will. But it is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which which had like a 1993 I think movie, which is just by all accounts pretty terrible. And I don't think the show even really, I don't know, because the show does make mention of the fact that Buffy's moved to school, and like I think she tried to burn the gym down in her old school and stuff, so I don't know if that's referencing the events of the movie. I've always kind of assumed that it is, but at the same time the show very much expects you not to have seen the film, and at no point does it ever encourage you to go and check out the film. So
that is fair. I love a wee bit of Buffy. Like I do feel bad because I still haven't finished it, but it is now on Buffy and Angel actually are on Disney Plus now, so I need to get on it.
Yeah, very, very much do. Both excellent shows. But yeah,
I don't know why I stopped watching it. I think it was like, do you know that way we've spoken about it before, when you watch a TV show and you like instinctively pick up your phone?
Yep.
I made the effort not to do that while I was watching Buffy, and I genuinely think maybe that's why I didn't watch it as much.
Yeah, because
it's like, this needs all of my attention.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit more of an effort. It's funny because you stopped watching it as well about series 3, and weirdly enough, I started watching it years back, like literally like when I was like 18, I think I first started it, and I got as far as like series 3 and then just kind of fell out from watching. I think it was on Netflix and then was taken off Netflix, and then I bought the third series on DVD, and I don't know, I think I got like, I don't even think it was like I stopped like midway through an episode as well, so I have no idea like why I never ended up going back to it, but I obviously did end up going back to it eventually, but I just started from the beginning when I did, because I'd forgotten like so much of it. But it's funny that you dropped off around the same point, especially because like now I would say series 3 is one of the better series, but it's weird how that's happened with both of us. But yeah, so
I love it. Buffy's such a really good choice, because it's like it seems like a weird choice to love the Buffy series, but I think there's a reason there's like hordes of people that love it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's got kind of like a kind of cult following. It's so good.
It's terrific. It does such a good job of like inventive storytelling with like interesting characters, and like the humor I think is really what like makes it land as well. Like I think it is just like consistently really funny, and there's some really, really good twists and stuff as well. Like there's some like proper jaw-dropping moments both in Buffy and in Angel. I think like you can sort of see the template that it set out for like so many shows that followed it as well, and it's without that really compromising like the enjoyment of the show. It makes you like appreciate it more. So but Buffy's a favorite for sure. But anyway, Moving on from our favourite movie to TV shows, now we're going to discuss the reverse. What are some of your favourite TV shows that have then become movies, Kathryn?
So this is a weird bunch of the movies. So the first one I wanted to talk about was Jackass.
Also on my list.
Yep, I love it because it's also another. I've got such a soft spot for Jackass. I think it's so funny. I actually read an article recently that was talking about how it's such a nice representation of like non-toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Where they're just friends and they just want to see their friends like being hurt or doing something stupid, which I think is how you, maybe myself not quite to that extent, but I know a lot of guys who are like, they'll tell stories about things that they've done and I'm like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
Jackass is like that, but like to the extreme.
Oh, absolutely.
It's such like a good way to I don't even know. It's like you could say like kind of like stress relief. So it's so funny because it's not you. That makes it even funnier.
I think there's a thing with it. It's so vulgar and it's so violent, but it's never cruel. And I think that's such a big part of it. Is like it's so like the spirit of it is just really good. Like you say, it's like a bunch of people that are friends and that are like, even though there's like a lot of suffering, there's also like so much enjoyment, and it's all they're all doing things that they have like decided to do. Like it's not, they don't force anyone into these things. They don't like, they're not actually like, you're not picking on anyone. It is all just like, I think that's the thing that makes it such like a nice watch. It's just like, it is like, you're so aware of the fact that these people want to do this to themselves.
It's such there's definitely moments as well where you can see like if one of them is, I can't think of an example, like if someone's like trapped in a stunt or whatever, they'll all rush to get them out.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like, like you're saying, it's that's such a nice point that it's never cruel, even when they're out in the public.
Yeah.
They're just generally doing it to make people uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Have you seen the newest one?
I haven't, not yet. No, have you?
Yeah, it is fantastic. Like I haven't
really?
watched, because I still haven't seen the original Jackass films since like for like well over a decade now. So it's been a very long time since I've watched like any Jackass, and I do remember loving it when I was younger, and obviously I was aware there was a new one coming out, and I went to see it again with my flatmate, just very much kind of thinking, okay, we'll go in and it'll be like a nice watch, like we'll have a good time with it, like it'll be a very pleasant experience, but it's just gonna be like fine, it's gonna be like a nice enough watch, but like I'm not really gonna. And I was just like, the two of us were just like in tears, laughing at points, and like we both like when it finished, we were both like, we did not want that to end. Like that was absolutely terrific. So yeah, I cannot recommend enough checking out the new one.
No, I definitely will. It's so funny. I think as well it works as a TV show and it works as a movie because it's almost just like a kind of segment show.
Yeah, exactly.
And the movie I feel like the movie would maybe, or has maybe like hyped them up even more. So like, it needs to, because it's going to be like an hour and a half movie, people can't just turn off the 20-minute episode if they don't want, so that you need to be able to keep them going for that hour and a half. Which I think it does very well.
Absolutely.
My other choice is also a weird one, and that is the Muppets.
I thought that was going to be on your list.
Oh yeah. I've got such a rep for being a Muppet fiend. I just think Muppet movies are amazing.
I don't disagree, to be fair. Muppets are class.
I haven't seen a huge amount of the show, but when it came on Disney Plus, I kind of started to watch it. And it's very much like a kind of variety show, which is good and it's funny, but I think the movies are such a good way, especially like there's like the way they retell stories, so like Muppets Christmas Carol, which we've spoken about in depth.
Treasure Island as well is one, isn't it?
Treasure Island, yeah, not my favourite, but I just feel like they're so funny and it's such a ridiculous kind of concept, and I like the idea of it almost being like the movie's almost being like anthology-esque, where it's the same cast but different stories and things.
Yeah,
I feel like there's like endless possibilities for them.
I do agree. It is a weird, like, route that they've taken with it, but it works really well. And it's they're all like they are pretty much just like these standalone things, aren't they? These standalone stories, and sometimes, like you say, they're adaptations. Sometimes they're just like an original story. Like, have you seen the new one, the first new one with Jason Segel?
I haven't, no, because I'm nervous.
It's really, really good. I watched it years ago now. I think it was around the same time I was watching How I Met Your Mother as well, so I appreciated like his inclusion. But yeah, I remember like putting it on, and I only put it on, I think, because I had seen really positive things about it, and I was like, you know what, I'll check it out. And I think right from the beginning I was like, okay, I'm here for this. This is a really good time. I definitely recommend checking it out, because as you said, as a Muppet fiend, you'll definitely find a lot there to love.
That's, I think, what's so nice about the Muppets. Like, the movies are just silly and they're fun, and they have their little heartwarming moments, but generally it's just a great time. And I feel like the movies improve upon the TV show, in my opinion. And then my last one is one that we've kind of spoken about before. And I'm not saying that this is my favourite movie ever, I just think it's a very good adaptation from TV to movie. And that's the first Sex and the City movie. Yeah. I feel like yeah. I feel like it does a really good job of, you can watch it if you haven't seen the show. It's really good, and it's got nice little callbacks for if you are a fan of the show. When I first watched it, I kind of watched it not long after it came out, so I hadn't seen any of the show, but it had a nice little like recap at the start. You very quickly, I mean, they're not very complex characters, but you very quickly got like who was who and what the dynamic was and stuff like that. So I feel like it's a really good, almost like a gateway if you haven't seen the show, which I think is a good idea if you're going to be making movies which is a straight continuation of the TV show. And I feel like it did it very well. It obviously had the same writers and things, so it just felt like one big long episode. But there was obviously like big moments in it, as there would be across like several episodes. So yeah, that was my last random choice.
Nice. No, nice. I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like, it's interesting how some of these work, because some of them are like remakes, some of them are reimaginings, some of them are like just taking characters and just like, some of them do kind of exist in their own like universe, like own little pocket, whereas like other ones, as you say, are sort of a continuation of like a continuity. And I think it must be genuinely must be a really difficult thing to do, because you are trying to please like long-term fans of something, but at the same time you don't want to shut out any potential like new fans. You don't want to shut out like anyone that maybe hasn't experienced this property before. And I think it's always interesting how like for instance, so one of the ones on my list, I'll start with this one just because I guess it's relevant to what we're talking about now, is the movie Serenity, which I was talking about Buffy before. It's based on this is basically the conclusion for the TV series Firefly, which only got one series, and it's always pretty much on like top of the list of like some TV shows that have been cancelled that deserved like a bit more love, a bit more time. And luckily, because of like the fan response to it and the cult following that it developed, they were able to make a movie to wrap things up. But I seen the movie first. I'd never seen the TV series, and I think I rented it from Blockbuster back in the day, based on like a friend telling me it was good. And it's weird because I remember watching it as a film and just being blown away by how good it was. And then obviously it was years later as well that I actually watched the TV series and then watched the movie again as like a conclusion to the TV show. And it was weird, like there was loads of things in the movie that I'd never really picked up on, that were actually like small little payoffs or details that tied into the TV series. And it's I feel like I probably enjoyed the TV series a little bit less than I would have if I'd watched it first, because I knew obviously what happened in the movie and sort of like some of the reveals, and obviously having seen like the big budget movie version, because it's a sci-fi western show, having seen like the big budget movie version, watching the TV show where obviously it's like on a much smaller budget, it did kind of feel a little bit like that thing that we're talking about with the Mandalorian, where like Firefly did to me kind of just feel like cheap, slight knockoff Serenity. Right. So that was a little bit unfortunate, but like for the most part, I still really enjoyed it, and yeah, I think it says a lot that the movie was able to work for someone who has no like understanding of the characters and the universe and the lore, and it was able to tell like a satisfying package that also like delivered to the fans. So that's one of my I have so many for this one. Fun enough, Jackass.
By the way.
Jackass is on my list as well because I do agree it is like terrific. I also have another one I have is the In-Betweeners. Only really like because I'm not so crazy on the second film. I don't hate it.
I would 100% agree.
But I think the first movie works so well, and they obviously planned to do this. The first movie works so well as just like a conclusion to the whole like show. And it ends things on like the perfect note. There is like a really nice sort of like sense of finality to it, and the way that it ties everything up, and the way it sort of pays off all the characters.
I loved as well. Sorry, it's obviously the TV show. Part of the TV show is that it's very like steeped in like British culture, and going on a lad's holiday to like Cabos or Malia and places like that is such a part of like British culture. So it makes sense that they did that, and I think that would make it better for people because there's lots of people who would have had that same experience, like, do you know what I mean, spewing outside a club somewhere.
Yeah, exactly, and then not that sort of uncertainty as well about like where they're going with their lives, and yeah, just it is just like it's such a clever idea, such a clever premise for like for a movie, and like you say, it's so true to like the spirit and the idea of the show, and the characters that I think it is like very, very well done, and I do think the second one undermines a lot of. I think the second one's still like an enjoyable enough watch, like it's still funny in its own way, but it just it does undo a lot of what the first movie does, and it leaves things on a much less satisfying note, and it feels like it was just made because the first one made a lot of money.
100%.
Another one I wanted to mention, which I like took me ages to think of, and I was really ashamed of the fact that it did. But to be fair, it's not one that I have seen in a very long time, and that's Rugrats. Which
what? I'm disgusted with myself that I didn't think of that.
I literally like it was a list of things that you'd sent me that I'd seen it on, and when I saw it, I was like, I cannot believe that didn't occur to me, because not only do they have like a great movie, they have several great movies.
Yes, I think the sequel, in my opinion, might be better than the original. Rugrats. Oh. What was it? Rugrats in Paris.
Rugrats in Paris is the sequel, and then Rugrats the movie's the first one. And it does. I think
it's maybe just because I watched Rugrats in Paris a lot more as a child and then as an adult than the original movie.
Fair. It opens with a Godfather reference, doesn't it? That's the second one.
Yes.
Which is
poor Chucky. Oh,
I know, but yeah, no, absolutely terrific film, and it introduces a character as well. It introduces a brand new character that then made it into the TV show and actually became like actually became like a part of the show, which is impressive. It's difficult to do that, I think. Like Rugrats is fantastic.
Such a good choice.
Thank you. Another one in a sort of similar vein. Also took me a while to think up. This one I would say maybe only has the one good film, but that's SpongeBob. Had a lot of love for the SpongeBob movie as a kid, and I think I probably have seen that more recently than Rugrats, and have been surprised at how much I've still enjoyed the SpongeBob movie. Have you seen the second one?
I haven't. No, I went to the cinema to see the first one though.
See, I'm pretty sure I didn't go to the cinema to see the first one. I think a friend of my mum's had like a pirate copy of it, and we watched it at theirs. I did go see the second one in the cinema, and the second one is weird. Like the second one,
in a good way, or
no, I didn't really like it. It's just very bizarre. I'm pretty sure there's like time travel at one point. There's like it goes from being like a 2D animation to a 3D animation at one point as well. It's just like a lot of really weird stuff that happens in it. Did that come out fairly recently? Like the last like five years or so, I think there's a third one that's either come out or coming out. But yeah, I think I'm quite happy to kind of leave it be now. The first movie is spectacular, but like they haven't managed to follow up. Another one I wanted to mention. This one I actually have not seen, the show that it's based on, and that's 21 Jump Street.
Yes, very good choice.
Which I'm aware of the fact that because I think Johnny Depp was in the original show, and I'm pretty sure he like turns up in a cameo.
Because Johnny Depp's in the movie as well, yeah.
Yeah, he turns up as like a cameo and as the character I think he played in the movie, and obviously they reference the fact that it is based on like a TV show from like the 80s. But yeah, 21 Jump Street is just like so perfect. It's just like a sort of action comedy. It's a very silly film, and yeah, just I have so much love for that film. Obviously talked about it before, just in relation to how much I love Phil Lord and Chris Miller. But yeah,
that's such a good choice. I feel like Channing Tatum does comedy so well.
Yeah,
like he's in She's the Man, which is hilarious as well. Yeah, good choice.
Thank you.
I wouldn't have thought of that one again because I've not seen the TV show.
Fair. Again, it was on the list. And one that you have, one that I'm very surprised you haven't mentioned, but we have talked about before. And I'm just almost bringing it up to shame you for not mentioning it. Is Scooby Doo?
The Simpsons.
No, it's Scooby Doo.
Oh. Do you know what? I think I saw Scooby Doo on the list as well, and I like avoided it because I was like, yeah, everyone knows that's amazing.
It doesn't even need to be talked about, which is fair.
Yeah.
And it's
so good. I think the movies are definitely. Well, no, see, I almost said that with confidence. I almost said that they were better than the TV show, but the TV show was good.
Yeah, that's it. I feel like they're almost on like two separate levels. Like they are both like terrific in their own way. And James Gunn was the one that did the live action movies as well, which is just, I know.
Crazy.
I know. Love
can I mention one just quickly while I remembered you talking about it? In a similar sort of vein, I've not seen the TV show, but the Addams Family.
Oh, yeah, nice. Very nice.
Those movies are very, very good. And I feel like they're very well cast. Angelica Houston as Morticia Addams is perfect. And I think we've spoken about that before, and Christina Ricci as Wednesday as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, Addams Family probably has like some of the best casting in like anything I've ever seen.
Yep.
Like, and I'm same as you, I've not seen what it's based on and stuff, but like you cannot separate those like actors in those roles. Like they're just like, and I know that they are trying to do that just now with like there's like an animated Addams Family.
Yeah. And there's a second one just recently come out. I've never heard anyone or even seen any reviews of anyone that's seen the first of those animated movies.
I think I seen some reviews of the animated one when it came out, just because I was like, this is going to be bad. I think I sought them out, and the reaction was very positive. Yeah. But yeah, I think The Simpsons, which you mentioned, was another one that I was tempted to put on there, because I do have a lot of love for The Simpsons movie. It does kind of just feel like 3 episodes stitched together, but in like a nicely done way, and it was really cool as well. I was like 12 years old when it came out. It was really cool seeing The Simpsons on a big screen, especially at that point when like The Simpsons was still, let's say, closer to its prime than
watchable.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm surprised that they've never done a sequel, especially because like the TV show is still going, and you would think that they would have at least attempted to do a second one.
Yeah, I love that there's a rule in my house where if I go to watch The Simpsons, and if I see the opening kind of like clouds, and the clouds are very, very blue, I'm like, that's a new one. Nope.
I love that.
I don't even give it a second.
You can tell by the intro. Fair though.
Yep.
Very fair. The last one I wanted to mention, is again another weird one because I've not seen the TV series that it's based on, or any of the TV series that it's based on. And I've also not seen, there's loads of these movies, and I've only seen the sort of latest 3. I think I've mentioned it in the podcast before, but that's Star Trek. I really, really rate the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek anyway. I think it's just like genuinely like a really, really solid, so it's just like a sort of fun sci-fi action film. I really like the cast. I have so much love for that film, and the latest one with which Simon Pegg co-wrote, I thought as well, was a sort of like a really fun, just like standalone story. So yeah, I got a lot of love for those Star Trek films, but I've tried watching the original series.
You should watch. Have you watched? My mum liked one of the Star Trek, the original movies. The Voyage Home, it's called. Have you seen it?
Is that the one where they go back in time?
About whales?
Saving the whales. Yeah, I've not seen it. No.
I'm not even gonna lie, it is worth a watch. It is pretty enjoyable.
The thing is, like,
I think the reason I liked it is because it was like set on Earth, so it wasn't
Yeah.
overtly Star Trekky. So
very, very
it was like
fair.
the least Star Trek, so that's why I enjoyed it.
It's one of those, Star Trek's one of those where I do know that I will like it. Like, there's probably a lot of like original episodes that I'd like. There's definitely going to be some like next generation ones that I'd like. Some of the movies and stuff as well. Some of the movies are supposed to be brilliant. I know I'd like them, but I have tried watching the original series I think 2 times, and each time I don't think I'm able to get through the first episode because it's just very 60s, very like it's pretty much exactly what you think it would be. And I think the first episode weirdly also doesn't have like any of the main cast. So like, yeah, I think it's like different characters that are in. Some of them are in like one of the J.J. Abrams like Star Trek movies. So I imagine it's like almost like going to introduce the crew either towards the end of the episode or like in subsequent episodes. But yeah, I just like really, really struggle. And at some point I will go and like I definitely will before I die. I will give Star Trek its fair like chance. But for the time being, it's just the Abrams movies for me.
It's a no.
Exactly. Cool. So, moving on. What are some of your least favourite movies that have become TV shows?
This one was actually quite difficult because I'm such a tyrant, even with myself, where I'm like, that looks rubbish, so I'm not going to watch it. So one for me was the TV show Scream, which is obviously spoke at length about the Scream movies before.
Yeah.
And the TV show just, I don't know, it just felt very like, maybe it's just because I'm not like a teen anymore, and it just felt very like, I've written here trashy teen. Like,
yeah.
I feel like it didn't have any of the kind of like charm or humor of the original movies. It didn't have the best parts of Scream is like the kind of like meta elements where they like Scream 4, basically the entire movie is them explaining the plot of the movie. But the TV show felt very much like it was almost in the same kind of vein I felt as like shows like Pretty Little Liars, and which are fine if that's what you want to watch. It seemed like it would be very of that kind of genre.
Yeah.
But I feel like it did the thing that we were talking about before, where it tried to take. Because see, I can't even remember whether it references the actual like Woodsboro murders. I don't think it does, but I could be wrong. But it's kind of tried to do that thing where it's just taking elements from the movie and then making a completely new thing, but it didn't work in my opinion. And yeah, I think that's partly because it's a different medium, it's TV, so it's going to be like, I think they're only like 20-25 minute episodes. And it felt different, like tonally it felt different, it looked different as well. Yeah, so not my favourite cup of tea. I feel like as well with a TV show there's going to be a time limit on something like that, because how long are they going to carry on with people getting murdered in their towns? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, there's 4 Scream movies, so but they moved out of the town for 2 of those movies.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, that was my choice.
Fair, very fair. Yeah, funnily enough, your answer is very much similar to mine, where I don't really have any good answers to this one, because for that same reason, that like there's so many TV shows that I see that are based on films and you can just sniff it a mile off where you're like, that looks soulless. Like,
yes, soulless is such a good description of that Scream show. I feel like there was so much potential there, but
which is such a shame, especially when it's like an IP that you love. But yeah, no, there's just so many shows that I see. Sometimes like I don't even hear about them, and I just like will be on a streaming service or something, and it'll be like, oh, there's a How to Train Your Dragon TV series, and you know, it's not it's not like I actively have like my ear to the ground of all things How to Train Your Dragon, but like I do generally follow like, you know, movie and TV show development stories and stuff, and like generally like my kind of rule of these things is like if I haven't heard about it, it's probably not going to be very good. So
like
yeah,
the Westworld movie.
exactly. Like if it was a great film, then it would probably have like come up in conversation a bit more, or like there'd be more people sort of like singing its praises. But yeah, if you've made it this far as a film student and you haven't really heard of these things, then there are alarm bells attached. But yeah, what I guess like the example that I found off the top of my head, and we were talking about The Mandalorian before, so I'll mention this, is Star Wars The Clone Wars, the sort of CG animated show, which, as I said, I'm trying to get through so I can watch The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, but it is, I'm not going to lie, it has its moments, but it is a bit of a struggle, because it is very much
yeah, that's interesting. I've heard the opposite.
So I've heard that it gets really, really good, and there are points where I'm like, this is like solid, but it does not start out good to begin, like, for one thing. It's very, very like, you can tell that it's aimed at a younger audience. It is one of those shows that very much feels the need almost to remind you over and over again that it is like dumbing things down for a younger audience, which I don't really think things need to do. I think you can include a young audience without making something tailored just for them. I think, like, contrary to a lot of people's opinions, I think Star Wars generally do a good job of including like a younger audience, while also not like really not like dumbing things down to a ridiculous degree. They're just kind of accessible. But yeah, I think the thing that really bothers me about the Clone Wars TV series is that it just constantly ignores its own like set of logic, its own like established logic. Like,
I can't abide that.
it's because it's a TV show which has Jedi as like the main characters, and there are genuinely points when like there's an episode in like the first series where Anakin, there's like some scientist and he's growing like a virus, and then they like corner him and he goes to escape and he's got like a vial of the virus, and then to escape he does that cliched thing, which is bad enough that they're already including like cliches like this, but he does that cliched thing of like oh, you can either save me or stop this virus from getting out, so he like throws the vial in the air, and then Anakin has to do this big like jump to the ground to catch it, and the guy gets away, and I'm like, you literally have the Force. Like, how am I able, like, that's not even, I'm not even like talking about obscure things in Star Wars that you would maybe not immediately think of, but if you're literally like, I don't know how long it takes to write these episodes, but from watching some of them, it feels like it took less time to write than it did to watch. Like, it is just insane how like mindless some of it is, and yeah, it's things like that just constantly make me groan when I'm watching the show. So I am gonna get through it, and I really do hope it does live up to what you've heard and what I've heard about it becoming good, because it's got a long way to climb right now.
I think TV shows are so weird. Like you were saying, like it was difficult in the beginning. TV shows, I would argue, more than movies, need to have a really strong opening.
Yeah.
Or you're just, because it's such like a time investment, you're not going to invest all that time if the opening was rubbish. But if you're watching a movie, you'd be like, I'll give it a chance because it's only an hour and a half.
Exactly. Yeah, and it gets, you're not gonna realistically, you're not gonna sit and watch most shows in one sitting. So especially like stuff like the Clone Wars is like 20 odd episodes a series as well. So yeah, you do need you need to make people care, and you need to give them a reason to put the next episode on. And yeah, it constantly feels like uninspired plots. It's even you're doing like a TV series based on like characters in like the Star Wars movies. The Star Wars movies don't really give you that much detail in the way of like their characters. Like, you kind of only really get what you see. You don't really have much of a backstory for these characters out with what you actually see on screen, and it just feels like a missed opportunity to not have more, just like some exploration of these characters and their histories and stuff.
Yeah.
It's just things like that I'm like, there are so many ways that you could have taken this show, and all you're really doing is telling like cliched storylines that are like so insanely predictable from like the beginning of the episode. Most of the show is really just you waiting for it to hit plot beats that are coming. Again, you do get the odd episode which is well told, but yeah, for the most part you're just like, oh, it's probably going to pan out like this, and then it will pan out like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. The next category is our least favourite TVs to movies. So our least favourite movies that are based on a TV show. So Kathryn, what have you got for this one?
So my first one was Absolutely Fabulous. Have you seen the TV show or the movie?
I haven't. No, I've seen neither.
No. the TV show is so good. It's so funny. It's obviously Jennifer Saunders and Joanna Lumley, but as far as I know, Jennifer Saunders wrote most of it, and she's hilarious. It's such a good show. I feel like it works perfectly within the kind of 20-minute, half-hour show, like runtime, because their characters are intentionally insufferable. Like, you're not meant to like these characters. They're horrible in every way. They're nasty to everyone they meet. They're just insufferable. But it's because they're such a caricature of what they're meant to be, that's what makes it funny.
Yeah.
And it's Ryan has kind of been in the background while I've been watching it, and that's just like, he cannot abide it because he hates them as characters. But I think it's hilarious. And obviously the movie came out a fair amount of time after the TV show finished. And obviously if you watch the TV show, it's a bit of its time. So there are jokes that maybe wouldn't fly as well now, basically. Yeah. And I feel like the movie felt like it was censored's not the right word, but it felt like it was being restricted, and it just didn't have the same. Obviously, you don't need to. Their characters weren't nasty or racist or anything like that. They were just outrageous, and I feel like it's maybe just not of its time now. So it didn't make sense for them to bring out a movie.
Yeah.
Because, as I said, when I was watching it, it just felt like it was very much like maybe Jennifer Saunders was like, rein it in. Yeah. Like that kind of thing. And it kind of, I've only seen it a couple of times, but it definitely like spoiled the show a little bit, because I was like, oh, because you kind of like misremember when you're watching it, like, is this what the show was like?
Yeah.
And then you don't really want to revisit it to be like, God, that was just a bit meh. That was what the movie was like.
I think sometimes like with that, it shows you the cracks that are maybe are evident in like the thing that you love, but you kind of just like, you either choose to ignore them or you kind of like don't really pick up on them. And then when you have something like that does the same thing but just doesn't do it very well, it then does kind of like tarnish your enjoyment of it, because suddenly you're able to see the flaws stand out a lot more, and they remind you of like the inferior like product effectively as well.
Yeah, I think as well the TV show had elements that were just really silly and like very clearly a TV show. There was elements that weren't. So there was quite a few like dream sequences which were really silly, and there was one where she was getting like all this plastic surgery, and so she was lying in this hospital bed in this dream, and they were doing lipo, and they were just sucking more and more out of her, so she was just like a shriveled little thing. She's just like this head and this tiny little body poking out the bottom. But because the movie was a different format, it just didn't work. They had changed the story so that Eddie was like ousted from society and she had to go abroad, and it just didn't work in my opinion. But the TV show, I feel like you should give it a try because it was very funny.
Yeah, I've always heard good things about it, to be fair. It's not something that I have actively chose to pass on, because I have always heard good things. But yeah, it is a shame to hear that obviously the movie. I think as well when there's like a good bit of time between a TV show airing and then them doing a movie of it, it is a bit worrying, because there's just something so like, you just worry that they will have lost whatever it was they had at the time. A bit too much time has passed for them to, I guess, find that world and those characters and that exact note that got it to sort of sing so like harmoniously the first time.
Yeah, no, definitely. My second choice is very niche, and that is the Flintstones Viva Rock Vegas. Because I feel like that's just a terrible movie. And
John
there
Goodman,
was another Flintstones movie no, this is the Mark Addy one.
Oh,
the John Goodman one's the good one.
Okay. I didn't realise they recast Fred Flintstone.
Yeah, and that was a mistake. And it was, I'm sure, no, one of the Baldwin brothers is in one of them, but I think he's in the good one. But this Viva Rock Vegas is just, especially like, I'm a fan of the TV show, or was a fan of the TV show. It's really, really funny. This is this thing again where I feel like movies from TV shows, Sex and the City did it as well, where they feel the need to get out of whatever location the TV show was based in. So Sex and the City, the second one they went to Abu Dhabi.
In-Betweeners did as well.
In-Betweeners, yeah. And it didn't work as well when they went to Australia. And then the Flintstones, they go to Vegas. And I'm like, but part of, especially shows that are so long running, the setting is part of the show.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
The Flintstones, obviously, they live in Bedrock, so that's why you're watching it. You want to see it. You want to see their weird, kind of wacky life in Bedrock. I've never sat and watched the Flintstones and thought, oh, I wonder what Vegas is like in that time. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it also, I distinctly remember there being a weird, like, cartoon alien, and I can't remember why it was there. I can't remember if it was, because I think the first time you see it, Fred had like hit his head or something, but then it just kept appearing like it was a character that everyone was acknowledging.
So there is this thing, and I've not, I'll be honest, I've not really seen that much of the Flintstones. It was one of those things I think I was aware of it as a kid, maybe saw like, I don't even know if I ever saw a full episode. I think I've just seen bits and pieces of it, and same with like the film or the films. I think I have just seen bits and pieces of them when they've been on TV over the years, but never watched more than like maybe like a scene or so. But I am pretty sure that I read a thing years back about the fact that like it is technically established in like Flintstones canon that Flintstones isn't actually set in the past, it's actually set in the future. Because I think there's like a crossover episode with like the Jetsons, but there's like no time travel. The Jetsons just land on the planet and the Flintstones are there, and obviously the Jetstones is set in like the far future, and I think that is established. So it's like they basically accidentally confirm, and I don't know if this was like a thought out thing or it was just one of those things that they just did it and then didn't actually think about the repercussions. But that might explain the alien, is the fact that the Flintstones is like
I've never thought of that before.
But it still is a weird thing to do, and it's weird that is like technically part of like Flintstones canon.
Yeah, I remember being a child and it being jarring. Like, that's concerning.
That is bad. You know when you're a kid and you're picking up on these things, that it's like, okay, it's like you've not done your job here.
Exactly.
But no, good pick.
Thank you.
An understandable one as well. This was another one I think that I didn't really have good answers for. I had like, because I think it's the same thing, but it's like most of these things that I've seen, like for instance I wrote down like the A-Team, which I saw like the 2010 A-Team movie, and it was like fine, it was enjoyable enough, but I also haven't seen the original A-Team TV series, so I don't really, the movie was just pretty much like forgettable. In fact, the only reason that I probably remember having ever having seen it is just because it's an A-Team movie and I'm aware of like the A-Team brand. Otherwise it just would literally have just been deleted from my brain. Another one I wrote was like Alvin and the Chipmunks, which again, that's a weird one where I watched the show as a kid and then I remember the live action movie coming out, and I think I just refused to watch it. I think we maybe watched some of it in school, weirdly, and I remember it being about as terrible as I thought it was going to be. And then there's like, again, another one is Death Note, where obviously like
I've seen the movie and it was terrible.
Yeah, exactly. Like I watched the movie and I also have not seen the TV series, even though the TV series is meant to be much better, but the movie did kind of like taint it for me. And another one of these, I guess like a more recent example, I think this has come out now. I think it came out a few months ago, but there's a Tom and Jerry movie with Chloe Grace Moretz. And I think I watched like one trailer for it and I was like, that looks so horrendous that even if it had looked great, I don't know if I'd have gone out my way to see a Tom and Jerry movie at this point. But
yeah, do you know what though? Did you ever see the kind of like original Tom and Jerry movie when they started talking?
The animated one.
Yeah, I always really enjoyed that. Like that was when we were kids that came out. Yeah. That was good.
And the gimmick of them talking for that movie I think worked really well. I think that was actually really clever. That's one of those things that could have gone either way, but at least as a kid I remember actually really appreciating that. It felt like it lent it felt that it then allowed the movie to basically, because God knows how they would have made that movie with like two silent protagonists. Otherwise, because that would be a really tough script to write. But yeah, those are my like very uninteresting picks. Thankfully, I guess that I've not got any that I'm like incredibly burned by, like absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, or Viva Rock Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so moving on. Are there any upcoming TV shows based on movies that you are interested in?
Yes, and I didn't know about this until I did my research.
Okay.
And that is, rumor has it, they're making an Alien TV show.
Yes, they are. Which.
And I read as well, helmed by the Fargo showrunner.
Noah Hawley,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Who is utterly fantastic. He also did a TV series called Legion, which is one of my favourite shows ever.
Oh, yeah.
So Noah Hawley for me is like anything he's attached to, I'm automatically interested in.
I think it's interesting as well that he's obviously done Fargo, which was a movie to TV. So he's done it before, and he's done it well. I also initially read that Ridley Scott was attached to it, which is super exciting, but then I couldn't find anything to confirm that.
I'm sure he's producing it. I'm sure I read an article talking about the TV series. I'm sure I feel like he would be involved as a producer because it's his like baby, and he does still have a lot of affection for it, obviously having gone back and made Prometheus and then Alien Covenant. But yeah, no, that is definitely one to be excited about, and I feel like it's interesting. I feel like, despite the fact that we have so many Alien movies, I actually feel like that's a universe that could do with a bit more fleshing out, or like I could definitely have a lot of time to invest to just see aspects of it fleshed out, because it actually feels like we've only like scratched the surface of it.
Apparently this one is going to be the first one set on Earth.
Oh wow, that's very exciting.
So that'll be interesting to see how they do that.
Yeah, I'm very interested in that. Are there any others to go?
No.
Not just Alien.
Just
Fair
Alien.
enough.
I think I feel like TV shows are kind of like, it's, for me anyway, it's a bit more difficult to kind of keep up to date with them, because I feel like they almost like fall under the radar.
Yeah.
Whereas films are so like high profile that it's difficult to miss.
That's a very good point.
And new films coming out.
Yeah, and now that TV shows, I mean, movies are now starting to do this as well, where they can you get movies that are dropped on streaming services and stuff, so you can miss some movies now a bit more easily than before. But I think TV shows, because they can, they can air anywhere, they can debut in different ways, they can be all dropped in one go, or they can be, they can come out weekly and stuff. I think it is quite difficult sometimes to actually to catch all these, because they might drop a TV series on a streaming service that you don't have, and so that you're not really aware of its existence, because you might just the promotional stuff just might not come your way at all, or there might be minimal promotionals. I've got a few for this one. One that I am hopeful for, but not necessarily optimistic for, is the Rings of Power Lord of the Rings show. Of course. I think is the most expensive TV show ever produced. And I mean, from the trailer, I'm not super impressed. I don't think a lot of people really are, but at the same time, I'm definitely going to give it the time of day. And there's absolutely potential for it to be really good. So, like I said, hopeful, but not. And actually, to be honest, pretty much all of the ones on my which is a small list, but all the ones on my list for this are ones that I am hopeful, but not necessarily optimistic for. Another one I've got is apparently they're doing a TV series based on Galaxy Quest, which
what?
Yeah, I know. I didn't know about that until I was doing research for this, and it came up, and I was like, okay, I am very, very interested in that, because
yes,
yeah. I mentioned,
I'm trying to think of all the different avenues it could go down. Yeah,
that's exactly
that one could be interesting.
Yeah. I had no idea what they would do with it, but I feel like it's just such a fun premise that I'd definitely be there for seeing what they do with it. Another one, and I haven't even really seen these movies, but I am interested in the idea of a TV series of it, and that's Friday the 13th. I feel like, especially with a lot of they keep trying to obviously like resurrect these horror franchises and stuff, and sometimes more successfully than others. Obviously, we talked about Halloween before, but I kind of always appreciate them trying to do it. You know, like as you know, obviously they did that Nightmare on Elm Street remake like well over a decade ago now, and then they've not really done any new like Nightmare on Elm Street content since, and I kind of think that's a shame. Like, I feel like that's another franchise that has like, you know, Freddy Krueger is such an iconic villain, and even if they made like a bad Nightmare on Elm Street movie, I would still be there for them attempting something with it. I'd rather see these things because at this point there's already so many of them, and I think Friday the 13th is the same. Again, I've not really seen any of them. It's one that I've always been meaning to go and watch at least the first few of, because they're supposed to be quite good. But I feel like at this point there's so many of them that there's nothing really at stake. Like if this TV show series comes out and it's bad, fine. You know, it'll be nothing in my life.
Like you could just go rewatch the first movie kind of thing.
Exactly. But if it comes out and it's genuinely good, and I feel like this is the thing with these franchises as well, because like they've existed and they've like made their mark on pop culture. There's a lot of creatives out there who are obviously like heavily inspired by these like franchises and who have a lot of love for them. And I feel like that always, the more time that passes, the more chance there is of the right person coming along with the actual like understanding of what made these things work, and they're able to like, I think why The Mandalorian has worked so well for Star Wars is it's developed by people who were obviously influenced, who basically probably part of the reason they're making films and making like TV shows is because of things like Star Wars, so they're able to translate that onto the screen, and I'd like to see that happen with Friday the 13th. And then the last one that I wanted to mention, which it is in development. I was trying to think if it actually was or if I just made this up, but there's a spin-off TV series based on the new Dune movies, which again I don't.
That's awful fast.
Yeah, well, I think it's one of those things that they were talking about for a while. I think because of the books and stuff like that, and I don't know if it was part of the deal of getting the movies made, but yeah, I don't know. I know Villeneuve's attached to it, but I don't know if he's showrunning it or what. But whatever the case, like I think it would just be cool to see more of that universe fleshed out, and I think the success of the first movie and hopefully the success of the second means that there'll be hopefully like a good budget attached so that it can sort of live up to the promise of the film. Okay, so the reverse of this now. Are there any upcoming movies based on a TV show that you are excited about?
This one I found super difficult because it tends to, I feel like by and large, nowadays anyway, just with the changing of like the way that we watch TV and the way the TV's made and the crazy budgets that TV have got now, it kind of, there's been like a switch where it tends to be like movies to TV shows now. So I find this one quite difficult. But the one I came up with was the Bob's Burgers movie. Do you watch Bob's Burgers?
I've seen like the first few episodes of it, and I wasn't crazy on it. But I don't know if it's just I don't know if it's just a rough start to it, or if that's the way the show is the whole way through.
That's pretty much the way the show is. I feel like if you didn't enjoy those first couple of episodes, you're probably not going to be a huge fan.
Okay, fair.
I feel like it does that nice thing that kind of like adult animation does, where it's just so silly, but it kind of is more grounded in real life than shows like Family Guy and American Dad, where they're never like in danger in the way that they are in Family Guy. Do you know what I mean? Whereas in Family Guy it's blatantly a cartoon. Bob's Burgers is really funny. It's like just like a kind of like exaggerated American Family, which is, it's pretty funny. I saw the trailer for the movie as well, and it doesn't really give any indication as to what the plot is, what it's about. So I'm getting kind of like vibes where it's just going to be like a super long episode.
Yeah. That's what you want, really.
And Bob's Burgers funny, but Bob's Burgers funny because the sometimes like the stakes are weirdly high in the episodes. So I feel like the movie's going to just hype that right up and just vamp that right up, which I think will work really well. So that was my one and only choice, I'm afraid.
Fair, no, that is very fair. I mean, I also struggled with this one. I think it's just not something we're really seeing as much anymore. As movies based on TV shows, and those that aren't super interesting. But the only one I had, I'll admit, isn't even one that I am that interested in seeing. I think there is like a mild curiosity, and And if you know, it's one of those where again I would hope that it'd be good, and if it was good, I would check it out. If it came out and it was bad, I would probably just steer clear of it. It might surprise you, and that is
Okay.
the Walking Dead. Um,
Okay.
which I've
I
long
didn't
since.
even know there was a movie.
I think there's a few movies in development. But yeah, long since given up on the show. I have no desire to go back to it. But if the movie comes out and the movie's good, then I think it'd be cool to see, like, because again, I think one of the problems for me with the TV show was it's really
One of the
repetitive
many
and
problems.
yeah, it takes so long to do it for anything to happen. It just very so much of it just feels like filler. And I think like giving it like a big budget and just an hour and a half to tell like one contained story, I feel like could actually be really good. I think it could actually
Yeah.
like inject a lot of adrenaline into the property, and again, it being a well established property, I like to think there'd be like a substantial budget attached. So I feel like a Walking Dead movie could genuinely work, and I would go and see it if it did.
No, that's a good point. I think one of my major issues with it is that it tends to, there's such a slow build up, and then there's one episode that's really packed full of drama, and then by the
Yeah.
next episode everything's resolved.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
which is infuriating. So hopefully a movie would kind of like entice them to like to draw out the climax of the movie
Yeah.
rather
Yes.
than have it within a 10-minute section and then the resolution.
Yeah, well, that's it. I think that it just feels a bit unbalanced, doesn't it? A lot of the storytelling in The Walking Dead, and I feel like a movie would be just a more sort of concise package, that would hopefully fix a lot of its flaws. But yeah, I guess we live in hope. Anyway, moving on. Are there any movie to TV shows that you would like to see? So any
This was
TV
another
shows?
difficult one. This was another super difficult one. And one, funnily enough, that I put down, I was reading about today, and that was Kill Bill. And
Oh.
I was reading about it today because they were talking. Uma Thurman had basically said there's probably not going to be a third movie, which I kind of appreciate, but I think, obviously the movie, it covers over the course of the two movies, so we know basically the bride's story. We know like kind of what happened to her, and then the whole movies are her enacting her revenge.
Yeah.
So I'm not even sure how I would like it to go. Whether I would like it to be based on different characters. I feel like I'm such a big fan of like Oren in the movie. She would be really interesting to follow. I don't really like the idea because it was kind of like floated when they were talking about the third movie of Vernita Green's daughter kind of like becoming the new assassin and going after the bride, basically.
Yeah.
I just feel like that would feel very like they were just trying to eke a story out of it. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know how they would do that. I think it's very unlikely because I feel like Tarantino's not the kind of person. He's not the kind of director that would welcome a TV adaptation.
Yeah.
which is fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny you say this because you actually just made me remember a TV show that apparently is in development that I am very interested in seeing. I like your pick, by the way. Kill Bill, I do think just
Okay.
there's definite scope for like that to work, and like because I mean it's already a movie split into two parts. There's obviously a lot of story there
Yeah.
to tell, and I think you could do that same basic story in a very different way, in a very interesting way. So I think there's like, or even do it within the same universe, and tell like other stories. There's a lot there to like to dive into. But yeah, so one TV show that apparently is in development is Bounty Law, which is if you've seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's the like Western serialized TV show that
Of course. Right, okay.
Rick Dalton stars in, and I like if it lives up to just like the clips of it we've seen, then I'm so there for it because I like it just looks like silly camp fun, and if it was just like a one-off like sort of mini series that didn't outstay its welcome, I feel like it could just be like fantastic viewing.
Yep, no, that's fair.
So that's definitely one I'd like to see. But do you have any others?
That was me. I find that really difficult. That was one of those
Fair.
moments we were talking about before where you like suddenly can't think of any movie.
Yeah.
that you've ever seen or enjoyed. Or sometimes I was thinking of movies, like my favourite movies, and some of them are like standalone movies, and I'm like, no, I like the fact that they're standalone movies. I don't
Yeah.
want an expansion on that universe. So I thought that one was actually quite difficult.
I agree. I agree. One I have, which I haven't even seen the film, I haven't read the book that it's based on either. I don't really have any attachment to the IP. But I'm mentioning it because, so I'll say what it is. It's Stephen King's The Dark Tower. And years back, like I'm talking like well over a decade ago, there were plans to do like a trilogy of films, but in between each film also do like a series. And it just seemed like the most like ludicrously ambitious thing I've ever heard of. But and this was, bear in mind, this was like pre Game of Thrones, so pre like TV being like what it is today. And this seemed like it never ended up happening. But I just remember following like all these updates on it and just genuinely just watching with like so much like fascination, because I was really wanted it to happen, just because I was like, that just seems like the most interesting thing to do. It's the June having like a TV series is kind of like reminding me of it a little bit, but it just feels like such a cool thing to do, to expand on the world, like to have all these actors and stuff carry over to TV series and then to bring them back into the movie and to just like have this like story that's told in different ways across different mediums. I just think would be like a really, really interesting thing. But yeah, I don't actually have any interest in, like, I've not seen the Dark Tower movie, not heard it's very good, never read the books. I just really like the idea of that. I'd like to see it done with something else at some point. One property
sorry. That does sound really interesting. I think I like the idea of like watching it, like the one contained thing, if it's made as a TV show and a movie. I think that would be super interesting. I think it's funny as well because you were saying that, and of course I was thinking about Sex and the City. It started as a TV show, had 2 movies in the middle, and now it's back to being a TV show, and everything past the first movie is I'll leave it at that.
Very fair. I think one other one I was going to quickly mention that I would like to see fleshed out, and again is kind of another cheat because it's not, I mean, didn't start off as a TV, as a movie property, and my feelings on it are now a bit mixed because of the author's like, I don't know, like lapse into insanity, but I would still like to see...
I know where this is going.
I would still be interested in seeing a TV series set in the Harry Potter universe, because again, that is one that I feel like has like so much scope for exploration. I would just really like it to not have J.K. Rowling involved. And I also think with what she's done with her own universe lately, that would also be for the best in terms of like the quality of it.
100%. That's such a good point, because I always say that some of my favourite parts in the books are the really boring parts, when they're just getting up and going to class and having their dinner and then going back to bed. I feel like there's so much scope for that, but you're right, you need to
maybe more time needs to pass so that she can be separated from it a little bit more as well. But yeah, that's one I'd like to see. Okay, so to wrap up then, the very last point, are there any movies based on a TV show that you would like to see?
So one of the ones I was thinking about was like if American Horror Story did a movie.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be super interesting, because I feel like they've got it down, where they've got horror down in such a specific way, where it's not massively full of jump scares, it's not massively full of gore, but there's elements of all kind of like horror aspects, and it's sort of like created its own kind of horror genre, almost like a subgenre. So I feel like that in movie form would be really, really interesting, especially because it's always just been TV, and I think it would lend itself to movies though, because it's like an anthology, so every season's different. So they're used to making different like kind of standalone stories.
Yep. This was one that genuinely did occur to me, and I didn't write it down because I figured you would write it down and mention it, and I'm glad you did, because I really do think it would work well as like a contained movie, like you say, because it's the template is basically there. Like there's a lot they could do with it, and I would genuinely be interested in seeing just what they did with like a movie, like a one-off sort of story. So yeah, no, fair. Did you have any others you wanted to mention, or was American Horror Story your pick?
The other one I wanted to mention was, and this is a weird choice because I feel like I would have wanted to see this as a movie had it. So like it would be interesting to see what it would have been had it started out its life as a movie as opposed to a TV show, and that was Game of Thrones.
See, that was one that I'd mentioned as well because
Yeah.
I like at one point they were talking about concluding it with a movie, and I wish that had happened because it just would have been a really feel like it would have been a really
That last
really
season.
yeah, well, exactly. I think that would have actually solved some of the problems, giving it like that sort of contained, like maybe like 3 hour story to just sort of tie everything up. But I think ultimately didn't because HBO is like a subscription service. They didn't. I think legally they were worried about charging subscribers an extra fee to wrap up the thing that they'd already been paying to watch. I think that was I
Right.
think there was like basically legal reasons was why it didn't go through. I think it was they were worried about lawsuits and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I very much agree with your pick there.
I think I don't know if it would work now because obviously they're bringing out the kind of prequel
Yeah.
series. But there's so many, like we were talking about before, there's so many avenues they could have gone down. They could have done it in the Harry Potter-esque way where each book's a movie.
Yep.
They could have had they could have had a movie about so like the prequels all about a specific house. So it could have been like that. So I think that's just it's a kind of like fun one to think about. Like if you were going to make a movie, how would you do it of Game of Thrones?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. There's a lot of scope there, and I think it'd be cool to see them do something like that at some point. But I think I'd be more interested in them doing that than doing like another spin-off series.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, fair. Good picks. Good picks.
Thank you.
My like, I'll mention just the one for this one, and it's one that took me a wee bit of time to think of, but I don't know if it's a TV show. I've mentioned it before. I mean, it's a very, very popular show, so it's not going to come as a surprise. But I'd actually really like to see a Rick and Morty movie. Again, going off of what you're saying with like animated shows and stuff, I just feel like, especially with like that show, it can be so nuts and so high concept that I would like to see what they just did with like a film. I feel like they really push it to like a really bizarre, interesting like way, and I think it just an extended basically episodes like similar to what you're saying with Bob's Burgers, I think would just make for like really enjoyable watching. So that would be that would be my pick basically for a movie based on a TV show.
That's such a good pick. I feel like I can almost imagine how you would feel. Imagine you went to see that in the cinema. I feel like you would come out feeling slightly nauseous and with a banging headache, but it would be you would have had such a good time.
I think you're right. Yeah, it would always be like an exhausting watch, but in like the best way.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that'd be my pick, and and I think on that note, we can wrap things up here because it has been a very, very long discussion. So thank you very much for your time, Kathryn.
No worries. Thank you.
Not at all. And next time it is you hosting, and we'll be discussing a TV show of your choice. So I look forward to that.
No prizes for guessing.
I know exactly. Hints dropped already.
Yeah.
Till then, take care and farewell.
See ya.